Hello everyone and welcome back to the final chicane with me, Cristinboylan. Hello everyone, welcome to the Singapore Grand Prix review. A few different topics to talk about between Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 4, F1 Academy. An exciting weekend, also probably one of the most stressful weekends of my life. It was a mess of a weekend. I've had the worst luck, and not all Formula 1 related. Not really Formula 1 related at all, but I am going to tell you about it later because it's actually insane, and I need to let you know why the updates were maybe lacking and set you up with my mindset over this weekend and where I was watching the race, blah blah blah, everything like that. But I'm going to tell you that story next. First, though, I'm going to do the riddle of the week. I learned to turn before I learned to walk. From karting tracks to asphalt, I answered the talk. Two flags hang at my shoulders, one echoing home, the other a city where the river Thames roams. I leapt from a sister car into a scarlet chase, held podium proof I belonged in that place. Then fortune tilted, I was eased from that seat, but the paddock remembers how I'd never accept defeat. I returned not to the same livery or fold, wore prime on my chassis, with that I drove bold. Steady and wet, determined and dry, I press on and persist, so who am I? I feel like if you dissect it properly, it's quite easy. You should know. You should get it. You should get it. I have faith. So if you do know who it is, comment below and I'll tell you the answer at the end of today's episode. I promise I will get to the Formula 1 talk soon, but I need to tell you about my weekend. So I don't know if I mentioned I was going to England in the last episode, but this weekend I was going to England. I was going to London to go wedding dress shopping with my sister. And it was fine. I knew, I would miss being able to do my updates for F1 Academy. If you don't know, I always post updates on every F1 Academy session. Free practice, qualifying, race, whatever it is, I always try and post updates to get more coverage of it out there. Not a single one could I post this weekend because they were just at the wrong times for me. So I was going to the airport Friday morning. If you don't know, in Ireland and over the UK, there was a Storm Amy, and that was quite bad on Friday. So we had a feeling our flight could be delayed or whatever, but a lot of them weren't being delayed at that time. And my brother was also flying out that morning to France, and he got out completely fine, which was lucky. So we got to the airport a bit after 12 p.m. on Friday. Our flight was 1:55 p.m. to Birmingham. The flight got delayed. So it got delayed, 40 minutes, whatever. Fine, no big deal. We were expecting that. There were still other flights going at this time. So, we didn't think it would be delayed all that much, but then it got delayed, maybe another hour or whatever. So, there's nothing you can do when there's a storm. We get that. But it came eventually, it was delayed until 5:40, and then it was delayed until 6:30. So we'd already been at the airport for so long at this point. And then it got delayed at 6:30. We found out that it was actually delayed until 9:30 now, which is a long time to be at the airport. So that was the start of our sort of bad luck for the weekend. I'm actually not a very big drinker, but I was like, I'll have a drink to help us get through this time. And I really only drink a vodka and a juice. And we went to the bar, and typically the person before us had taken the last of the blackcurrant or cranberry. There was no juice at all left, so I didn't have a drink. No big deal. That's no big deal. Then Ryanair issued vouchers, and we were like, oh, that's good, we can get some food or whatever now. But I don't know, if you have the Ryanair app, that does not work. We were getting notifications and we just couldn't get the vouchers or anything like that. And then we found out that the vouchers were only for €4, so you couldn't even buy a bottle of water for that in Dublin airport, I swear. So that was a bit of a joke from Ryanair. At this point, we'd been in the airport for nearing 8 hours. 9:30 came, our flight got delayed again. I don't even know what time. Maybe we got on the flight at 11:15 or something like that. It was quite late, so we were nearly at the airport 12 hours. So all of our reservations for that night were cancelled and everything like that. So we got on the flight. That was fine. The wind was so strong that we got there, I swear, like just over half an hour, and it was supposed to be like an hour and 15 flights. So that was good luck. But then we got there and actually scary landed because it was still quite windy. This is a longer story, guys, sorry. You can skip forward if you want. We got there, we landed. We had a bit of a wait before the plane could like drive to where we needed to stop. And then half of the plane got off, we were at the back, and we had another over half an hour wait on the plane for the bus to arrive, like, you know, the bus that takes you back to the airport from the plane. So by the time that we got to Birmingham, we got into the airport, all of the trains had done, like, there was no trains that we could get to where we needed to go. So my sister's fiance had to drive, you know, an hour and like 40 to the airport to pick us up, and then the drive back was an hour and 40. So we were well into like the nearing 2 a.m. stage at this point. And then we got back to my sister's house and the electricity had gone. So we're in a completely electricity free house with our phones on like 1% because we were at the airport all day, didn't have power banks, and the airport was so busy. I've never seen Dublin airport as busy as it was. And I think they actually stopped serving alcohol in the airport because passengers were getting rowdy. Couldn't blow up the blow up bed, whatever. But all that was fine. I'm quite a positive thinker. I think I try to find the positives in all this situation. But that Friday was the most stressful day of my life. Like, what do you do in the airport for 12 hours in a storm? And we had a really good day Saturday. And then Sunday, we were honestly like, there's no way the travel day can go any worse than Friday. We were wrong. So we went to this train station. We were at Charlbury train station. And we just had to get to Oxford train station and then Oxford to Birmingham. So then to be fair, we made the mistake by like leaving it close. Like if we missed that train, we were done for. But we knew we weren't going to miss the train. But then the train got delayed. And, you know, up to 5 minutes delay, we would have been fine with it, but it got delayed by, I think, 15 minutes. So that left us with 4 minutes to get off the Charlbury train onto the Oxford train that would bring us to the airport. And there was only one Oxford train, like, every hour. So this was our only chance. But obviously, the Oxford train might have been running a little earlier too. So the Oxford train ended up being on the platform, because it was the same platform. The Charlbury train would have arrived at the same platform that the Oxford train was departing from. So then our train that we were on, the Charlbury train, had to stop at the red lights because there was another train on the platform, and that train was the Oxford train. So the Charlbury train should have been there first, but it was delayed. So we had to wait for the Oxford train to leave before we could get off the Charlbury train. And obviously the Oxford train is the train that we needed to get on. With that train, we would have made it to the airport like sort of an hour before gates opened. But the trains are a lot faster than like driving yourself. So we went to the black cabs outside of the train station. We were asking how much they could do it for, and the cheapest that they would do it for was £200, and we couldn't afford that. So my sister ended up like finding a taxi on one of the websites or whatever for £115 that we could get. So we were like, okay, we're going to be broke, but we're also going to miss our flight if we don't leave right now. We were going to get to the airport for around 3:10. Gates close at 3:25. So we knew we were cutting it close, but we would have made it. But the taxi driver, who was very sweet, and he did his best to get us there on time, he took a wrong turn, and for some reason he dropped us he went to where the private jets are, or where you would be getting a private jet from. So he was like, wait, are you flying private? And we were like, no, we're flying Ryanair. We need to get there, you know? So that added like 6 minutes onto our journey. So we got there obviously quite late. We ran through security and we got to the gate as the flight attendant was closing the gate door, and she wouldn't let us on the flight. She closed the door. We got there a minute before the gate should have closed. I'm pretty sure the gate usually closes 20 minutes before, and it closed like 22 minutes before. So it was just those 30 seconds that we needed. We missed the flight by 30 seconds after spending that money on a cab just to get there. So the next flight that we could book, that we could afford, was actually Aer Lingus. And it was sometime around 9 that ended up getting delayed until 9:40, I think. Pretty sure that was like one of the only delayed flights, but that's quite typical. So we had another long wait at the airport, which was completely fine. But yeah, and then the plane came. We had one of the like propeller planes. Do you know like the you know the planes that I'm talking about? They have like propeller. I think that's what they're called, propeller planes or whatever. Like they're tiny, 2 seats. Like 4 seats in a row is just the plane, 2 on each side. And that was scary. Like I literally have never had a fear of planes before, but I was scared on that jet plane because I felt like we were just really like close to the ground, and I didn't trust it. And I was like, this, like we're gonna crash. Too much bad luck. Like I was so certain that the world was just trying to tell us something. There was one point on the plane that I looked over to the window, like at the far side of the plane, and I could just see red and orange. And I was like, oh my God, the plane is on fire. And I was not one bit surprised. I was like, of course, the plane is on fire. Because that would make sense after the look that we've had. But I think it was just like the lights from the engine or something like that. But it seriously looked like it was on fire. Then we got on the bus after we got off the flight, and honestly, that journey took forever. Me and Mum were both like, they may as well just drop us home at this point. We've been on this bus for so long. We got a tour of the whole airport. We got to see where the planes sleep at night, like in their little covers and stuff like that. And we still had a good weekend, and we got home safely. We got to and fro safely, which is all that matters. But guys, I did not need that stress this weekend. I feel like I've talked about this half the episode, and now I'm actually going to get on to the Formula 1 talk. I'm so sorry, guys. I always get some complaints when I talk about my personal life too much and not Formula 1. So, you know what? Completely valid, completely fair. Alex Dunn. Ooh, we should talk about Alex Dunn, should we? So it was announced that Alex Dunn left the McLaren driver development program, a mutual decision, apparently, which I do believe. I got so many texts on whatever day it was announced, Wednesday or Thursday, being like, oh my God, how could they do this to Alex? What does that mean? Is this his career done? And honestly, there wasn't a second where I thought this was anything other than extremely good news, like very positive news. With how Alex is doing this season, there is no way that McLaren wouldn't want to keep him. There's no way that they would get rid of him for any reason. So obviously them getting rid of him was, as I said, a mutual decision, which in my opinion is that Alex saw, look, he could stay at McLaren, the fastest team on the grid in Formula 1, but they have two drivers that are young and set on probably staying. Like there doesn't seem to be a future in the near future for Alex at McLaren. And he saw that, I guess, in whatever contract that he was in. I don't know the ins and the outs of whatever contract Alex had, but there was potentially something preventing him from even talking to other teams while he was in that contract. So it's likely that he pulled out of that contract so he could talk to other teams. So I'm not sure that anything is even confirmed on what he's going to be doing. I think Alpine confirmed that they're only looking between Franco Colapinto and Paul Aron to partner with Pierre Gasly next year, which makes sense. I couldn't really see Alex in the Alpine anyway. I'm also not sure he has enough super license points, right? I don't think he has enough super license points to join Formula 1. Potentially at the end of the season, I think maybe he might have to finish third to get enough super license points. That depends on, I'm not sure if the 2022 points carry over. I'm not completely sure how the super license points work at this sort of point. So I think if the points carry over that I'm thinking of, he might just have to finish fifth to have enough super license points. But if they don't, which might be more likely, he'll have to finish third, and that isn't looking all that likely anymore. A lot of people thought that he was done in F2 now. No, he's still driving for Rodin in F2, sponsored by McLaren. He's just not part of the McLaren driver development program anymore, which is what was giving him the free practices and everything like that. So I know a lot of the rumours are basically that he'll join the Red Bull driver program, and that would make sense. I know a lot of people, you're thinking, but McLaren are way ahead of Red Bull. Why would he do that? Because it's a chance of a seat in Red Bull or V-Carb. He has two sort of options there. I think it's quite safe to say that Yuki and Liam Lawson's seats are definitely not safe. There's always the potential that, Max leaves or Isaac gets snatched up by someone else. I think that's less likely that Isaac will be going anywhere. But Hamlet was, of course, asked about this, and he said that since Alex became free of McLaren, they can freely talk now about it, and that he mentioned how strong of a driver Alex is, but that he does make mistakes, but that he's very much like a Red Bull driver. And I think in the way that he makes mistakes, he's very much like a Red Bull driver, because he makes mistakes going for the risks that could end up winning him the race, if that makes sense. Like he has a bit of a Max in that sort of style. Like He just needs the time. And, you know, he's only in F2, his first year in F2 as well. He just needs the time to just try get them a little cleaner. But I think Red Bull would be very, very deeply looking at him. Obviously, we have Lindblad in the fold there too. And obviously he's been part of the Red Bull family for longer, so there's obviously going to be some comparisons there. But also, you know, at Red Bull, like, they're very cutthroat. Like, if they think you're better, they'll get rid of, you know, loyalty may not be their strongest point. So I think, yeah, out of everything, this news would be good for Alex Dunn. And I don't think we have anything to worry about. I don't think he's going to be in Formula 1 next year. I think he will be in F2, but powered by Red Bull, I guess, and maybe doing some practice sessions, hopefully, with Red Bull, anything like that. But yeah, I think this is good news in general. It would be sick, though, if, like, Oscar Lando just got fed up and left McLaren and Alex had lost that opportunity. But honestly, McLaren would be missing out. Staying with Irish motorsport, actually, we had Fionn McLaughlin became the F4 champion on the Saturday as well, not even the Sunday. What a special moment. It was also announced that he will be joining High Tech next year, which is F3, so we will be able to actually watch him drive every weekend in F3. And I'm going to be watching F3 for the first time ever. I've never watched F3 before, but we're going to have to start now. And I'm excited. I just have never watched it because, like, I'm overwhelmed with motorsport series right now, but it absolutely deserves the watch, I'm sure, and I'm very excited to see how Fionn does. He had 5 wins this season and 7 podiums, I believe. So a very impressive season from Fionn, and he really did deserve to win. And what an achievement for Ireland. F1 Academy was also on this weekend, and what an exciting weekend it was. Again, I was sort of just watching it while walking around the place, so I couldn't really video it. But if you're not watching F1 Academy, it is up for a really, really exciting finale in Las Vegas. We had Pan at 151 points to Vug's 142 points and Lloyd's 101 points. And it was sort of looking like this would be a slam dunk for Dorian Pan, but Vug is coming and she is building. She had an incredible last lap to take the win of the race over the weekend. She's honestly, some of her moves are borderline like penalty-ish, but she's getting away with them. I think I might have had some different decisions if I was a steward, but it is making it really exciting, and she genuinely could snatch the title in Las Vegas, so that's not something that you'll want to miss. I'm so excited to watch the rest of it. Leah Block also with their first win, which I don't know if you watched the F1 Academy series, but we got to see a lot more insight into Leah Block and her relationship with her father, Ken Block, and how proud he would be that she finally got a win in F1 Academy, and what a great win it was as well. So please give F1 Academy a chance if you haven't already. But yeah, if you do rely on watching my updates for F1 Academy, which makes sense because Formula 1 can be a lot, and on F1 Academy maybe isn't on at the best time sometimes, I am sorry that you miss out on that this weekend. If you want, I can make a recap of the weekend, like a little separate video outside of the podcast, so just let me know. If you ever want me to make a video about anything motorsport related, you know, outside the podcast, like a separate one, explaining anything, going over a weekend, if you missed it, like, I will do it, so just ask. What last piece of media news do we have? Oh, actually, did you see on Media Day, Lewis was asked to give some advice to Oscar about his, like, championship hopes and everything like that, and he said something like, don't give places away to your teammate. You know, like, in the sense that if you're asked to swap, and Oscar said that he knows Lewis has sort of been in that position, so he'll take that advice on board. I think he said that after the race on Sunday. So things are gonna start to get so intense in McLaren. I'm living for it because, like, I don't know who I want to win, so I'm just living for the drama, you know. Now, to the actual racing of it, FP1, we had Alex Albon with some issues. He had a hardware problem with his rear brakes, something similar to what Carlos had, I think, in Austin. But things did get a little better, and then they got a lot worse for Williams. FP2, Ooh, Lawson was struggling in the practice sessions, actually. He brought out a red flag when he hit the wall. George Russell also bringing out a red flag. And then Lando and Charles had that little pit lane incident, which was Charles's fault. They had a bit of a crash in the pit lane, which resulted in a 10k fine for Ferrari. Obviously, that would be a lot more if it was in a qualifying session or a Grand Prix, but not a bad fine for Charles for what the incident actually was. And then Lawson with another crash in FP3 with the red flag. Honestly, I think Russell was being a bit of an underdog in the free practice sessions because for some reason, or maybe I was just being dumb. Like, I was like, it's either going to be Max, Lando, or Oscar. I unfortunately play a role in the like erasure of George Russell sometimes, because sometimes I just forget that he is insane at times. Like, he's always great, and then sometimes he's insane. I need to start my George Russell needs more appreciation campaign. Qualifying, I watched qualifying in the dress shop. My sister was like listening in behind the curtain to see what my sister would say about the dress that she was trying on, like if she would be like, wow, when she put it on, because we couldn't see the dress until they showed us the dress. And I was just like reading out the results of qualifying to her, and we had two very different priorities. I was not being a good bridesmaid at that point, but I'm going to be the best bridesmaid. I'm a bridesmaid, did I tell you that for the first time ever? I'm so excited. But yeah, her dress is literally stunning. It suits her so much. So to go into Q1 a bit further, Pierre Gasly did bring out a yellow flag. He stopped with an issue, I think with only a few seconds to go of qualifying. I was surprised that it didn't turn more into a red flag. And a few people were lucky that it didn't. But out with Gasly, Ocon, Colapinto, Stroll and Bortoleto. Probably a bit more of a disappointing result for Bortoleto. He would have wanted definitely to be up there, especially with Hulk. Definitely not an easy track though, and yeah, we still have Colapinto struggling a bit. Gasly obviously was out first, but Colapinto would want to be getting a few better results. And then Ocon as well. Behrman had a very strong session, so not a great session from Ocon, who was actually looking quite good in the free practice sessions. Q2 was not looking good for Charles. I thought that he was going to be out. I was quite ill watching Q2. Unfortunately, Yuki didn't have a good session either. He stayed in the pit for the final lap, so he was the first one out of Q2 then, with Lawson out qualifying him, but being out next. Sainz, Albon and Hulk. That is Lawson being out qualified by Hadjar again, Albon out qualifying Sainz, even though they were right in front of each other. Quite a good sign. They're both clearly getting what they can out of that car. And then Hulk with a good enough result as well, just on the cusp of Q3. And then Russell just brought everything in Q3. Early on, he had such a strong lap that no one could beat, and I think he brushed the wall slightly in that. Lando and Max, still good laps going, Oscar too, but I think Lando didn't have a great last lap. There was no improvement anyway from his previous time. And Russell ended up grabbing pole with the 129.158. I was so happy for Russell. He really deserved that pole, and a lap. Just a lap it was. And Max was off by 0.182, so it was close, but Russell had that pole and he made the most of it. So I was literally just watching the Grand Prix, started on the first train to Charlbury, stopped watching it when I realised we were going to miss our second train, because hell no. And then started watching it again in the taxi on the way, so I did miss quite a bit of it, but I did rewatch it, obviously, in the end. I somehow missed the Oscar and Lando situation at first, because I believe the commentators thought it was more a Lando Max thing, and I know there was a Lando Max situation there, but rewatching it, and I'm so glad I rewatched the race again, because there was so much like drama that I missed. So right at the start, Oscar was nearly pushed into the wall by Lando. They made contact. Lando ended up getting damage to his front wing end plate. Charles actually a good start. He was up 2 places at the start, but Oscar was not happy with this move by Lando. And then the team tell Oscar, as if it would make it better, the team tell Oscar that, oh, Lando went into you so he wouldn't go into Max. Which I think is an insane statement to make. Like, As if Oscar would be like, oh yeah, no, that's fine. Like, I'd way rather Lando take me out of the race, the championship leader, than Max, who's not even on the same team. So I don't know why they don't know why they admitted to that, or they said it in a way that would be like, oh, that's okay. And Oscar was obviously not happy with that. He said if he has to avoid another car by crashing into his teammate, that's a bad job of avoiding, which is pretty fair, to be honest. Obviously, it's a first lap incident from Lando, but I was a bit disappointed with Lando's reaction to it as well. You know, like if you're hitting into your teammate and if, you're going to mess up the race quite early on, it wasn't really racing. I think Lando said stuff like, it's just good racing and it's a gap and the whole like Formula One thing. But yeah, there was some early tensions then going on between McLaren, and you can tell it is heating up, the tensions there. Then McLaren asked Lando if they could pit Oscar first to protect him from Charles. And I thought Lando, because I think he said like, yeah, no. But when he said yeah, I was like, oh, that's quite nice of him. But he was like, yeah, no, which is fair. Lando shouldn't have to pit for that. But I feel like Oscar might have been made to do that if it was the other way around. It is a little bit of a different situation from Monza, was it? But yeah, that was like quite a big moment of... I guess it wasn't completely defiance because the team were asking him, they weren't telling him, and he didn't just say no. But you can tell like they're most definitely in the one everyone for themselves sort of vibe now. So Lando did pit first, and thank God he actually got a good stop for once. Hadjar actually started showing engine issues around this time, but he was still driving his heart out actually. Hadjar was having a really good race. Carlos Sainz was having a very good race. Yeah, Carlos went from P19 to P10. Yeah, Carlos went from P19 to P10, so he had a bit of a quiet but very good race. Deserved a bit more appreciation, I think. Ollie actually had a really good move on Albon. I don't know why I found that move funny, but I really liked that move. And then, yeah, it was time for Oscar's stop, and he had a 5.2 second stop, so it was his turn to get the slow stop, and also being pitted second, so that was not a good outcome. Actually, Alonso had an even worse stop. He had a 9.2 second stop. Other good moves, Kimi had a very good move on Charles. And then Hadjar was still doing some nice defending from Alonso, but Alonso's also doing some nice moves. And Alonso did end up overtaking Hadjar. And I think maybe a bit of tension, not much though, because Hadjar obviously had a bit of issues with his car, and I think Alonso was upset that he was fighting so hard. But that's just Isaac Hadjar for you. Just because, his car isn't up to scratch doesn't mean he can't work on his defending skills, especially against Fernando Alonso of all people. Hulk with a very good save. He did such a good save with that. He kept it running. That was around lap 45. Norris was keeping up with Verstappen most of the race as well, so a very good drive from both Lando and Max. And George did end up winning by, I think, near 5.5 seconds. With Norris 0.6 off of Max, so it was very close there. And obviously with the positions of McLaren, they became world champions. So McLaren won the Constructors' Championship, which was not a surprise. We knew they were going to from the start of the season. Maybe I thought they were going to win it last race, but Singapore is still quite a good race to win it. I saw that they potentially started celebrating when Oscar was still doing media, because I think you could see Oscar in the background looking at the TV or something. So I don't know if that's a normal thing. I would have thought they would have waited for, there's only two drivers. You should probably wait for both of them before you start with the big celebrations. But yeah, maybe there's nothing deeper to that, but I probably would have been a little if I was Oscar. Lewis as well. Lewis was having, his brakes were sort of gone throughout the race, so he did end up getting a 5-second penalty due to track limits. So him and Alonso basically swapped positions. He dropped to P8, but still looking good. Oh, Roscoe, I forgot. I didn't even mention that yet. My heart is broken for Lewis, because there's nothing Lewis loves more than that dog, Roscoe. And I love Roscoe. I knew Roscoe before I knew most of the grid. Like, it's insane. And I'm very much a dog person. But I get how Liz feels. My dogs are literally everything to me. My dog Bailey, before he died, before he was murdered, actually. He was literally the greatest thing in existence. So I get that. R.I.P. Roscoe. So the driver standings after this weekend, we have Piastri at 336 points, Norris at 314 points in P2, Verstappen 273 points, and Russell 237 points. It is still possible for Max to win the championship, but very, very unlikely. And honestly, Russell could very easily overtake Max if he keeps going with these performances, and obviously he'll need Max to drop down a bit. But it is getting close again between Piastri and Norris, and really just one weekend of one of them DNFing, especially if it's a sprint weekend as well, where more points are, it could change up everything. And yeah, that is the end of my notes. I hope I didn't leave anything out. I've been talking for quite a while though, but most of this episode has been me talking about my personal life, which no one literally cares about. Will I give you the answer to the riddle of the week? So the answer to the riddle of the week this week is Alex Albon. It was an easy one. Like, if you know about Alex Albon. It was more of a story one I did this week. So it was like basically telling a story that sort of rhymed, but I liked it. So round of applause if you got that right. The Independent Podcast Awards are on next week. There are still tickets available if anyone is interested in going. I think it's in King's Place in London. So back to London next week. Hopefully the flights will be a bit better. You can also watch it online, but it costs like £11 to just stream it online. But I'm excited to go to that. Represent you guys. Austin is next. Why did I not know that Austin was next? That's so confusing. Sprint weekend next, and it's the later times. What time is the race? 8. The race at 8 p.m. Ireland time. So that is the 17th of October. So not next. So there's no race this weekend. So I'll see you for the 17th then. So yeah, I want to know your thoughts on how the rest of the season is gonna go. So let me know that, and then I'll see you for the Austin Grand Prix.